My friends and I have always been nature lovers, so when school ended, we decided to celebrate with a camping trip in a nearby forest. It was just us, away from everything, enjoying each other's company and the peacefulness of the environment. We set up our tents as soon as we arrived, excited to spend the night telling scary stories around the campfire. But as soon as the sun set, a strange feeling started to set in. We heard suspicious sounds coming from the darkness, branches moving without wind. A heavy silence fell over the forest, as if something or someone was watching us. I tried to ignore that uncomfortable feeling, but I couldn't focus on the conversations. My mind kept thinking about what could be lurking around our small clearing. Then, in the middle of the night, we heard a piercing howl that chilled our hearts. We exchanged terrified glances, all feeling like we weren't alone out there. I couldn't sleep at all during the night. That feeling of being watched wouldn't let me rest. Suddenly, my friend Mike stood up abruptly, his face pale with fear. "Guys, I saw something out there," he whispered, frightened. We gathered around him, trying to calm him down and ask what he had seen. He explained that he had noticed a strange, shadowy figure at a distance, watching us through the trees. When his eyes met those of the creature, it simply vanished into the darkness. My heart raced, adrenaline surging through my body. We all looked at each other, apprehensive. Had Mike really seen something, or was his mind playing tricks on him? We rushed out of the tent, searching for any sign of that frightening presence, but found nothing. The forest was completely silent and empty, as if nothing had happened. We returned to the tent, trying to convince ourselves it was just his imagination. But the tension hung in the air, and no one could sleep anymore. We all stayed awake, listening intently to the slightest noise, worried that something or someone was out there, watching our camp. The tension only increased after that night's incident. During the day, we started finding strange signs around the camp, odd footprints in the mud, broken branches, and things out of place. We constantly looked around, startled by any movement or suspicious sound. Then, in the late afternoon, Emily found something even more disturbing, a rusty knife hidden among the trees, just a few meters from our tents. A chill ran down my spine as I looked at that rusty weapon. Who could have left it there? And why? We gathered everyone and showed them the knife. Everyone was shocked and confused. Was there someone hostile lurking around our camp? Did that creature Mike saw at night have anything to do with this? A growing fear took over us, the feeling that we were being targeted by something sinister. That night, none of us could sleep. We were on constant alert, startled at every rustling branch or animal noise. We didn't know what to expect, whether that presence would manifest again. The environment that was once so peaceful and welcoming now felt like a deadly trap, ready to swallow us at any moment. That night was hellish. I could hardly close my eyes, my whole body tense, waiting for the worst. Then, around midnight, we heard a noise coming from the forest. There it was again, the shadowy figure that Mike had spotted earlier. We watched in silence, stunned, as it seemed to circle us, moving slowly among the trees. Our hearts raced, fear taking hold of us. Finally, one of my friends, Jake, couldn't take it anymore and ran out of the tent, shouting for the figure to go away. To our surprise, the creature just stopped and stared at Jake. It seemed enormous, imposing, and even at a distance, we could feel its menacing presence. We were paralyzed, not knowing what to do. Then, slowly, it turned and disappeared again into the darkness of the forest. We didn't know whether to cry in relief or brace ourselves for the worst. Something very disturbing was happening there, something beyond our understanding. That presence watching us, the hidden knife. Were we really being targeted by some kind of threat? Exhausted and traumatized, we spent the rest of the night in silence, clinging to each other, waiting in dread for dawn. That night, the peaceful and welcoming forest scene had turned into a living nightmare. When the sun finally rose, we were exhausted but relieved to have survived that terrifying night. We quickly gathered our things, eager to leave that place as soon as possible. As we took down the tents, I couldn't stop looking around, afraid that the shadowy figure might reappear at any moment. We were all shaken, our confidence and sense of security completely shattered. Just as we were about to leave, we heard a strange rustling coming from the bushes. We exchanged terrified glances, but then, to our relief, a small, hopping creature emerged, a frightened rabbit. We breathed deeply, nervously laughing at our own paranoia. With the car ready, we quickly got in and left that cursed forest. None of us said a word the entire way back. It was as if we had lived through a nightmare, a traumatic experience that would mark us forever. What was in that forest? Who or what was that figure that terrified us so much? We never went back to camp there again. Whenever I think about that night, a chill runs down my spine. Something very wrong happened there, something beyond our understanding. And I have the feeling that somehow, that creature is still there, watching us from the darkness, waiting for our return.
I remember that night as if it were yesterday. My friends and I had traveled to the forest to camp, drawn by the legend of the woodsman we all knew. After setting up our tents, we gathered around the campfire, sharing ghost stories. As the night wore on, the atmosphere grew darker. The flames danced restlessly, casting eerie shadows through the trees. Our faces, lit by the fire, showed expressions of curiosity and apprehension. Then, I decided to tell the famous legend. I narrated the story of the woodsman who had disappeared in those same woods years ago, never to be seen again. They said his spirit roamed the forest, searching for his lost axe. As I described the details, the nighttime sounds seemed to grow louder and scarier. My friends fidgeted uneasily, nervously glancing around. When I finished, a heavy silence fell over us. No one dared to move or speak. Then, something caught my attention. The sound of branches breaking came from the shadows beyond the campfire. My heart raced as I stared into the darkness, trying to identify what it could be. The sound of wood snapping and heavy footsteps echoing through the forest made my blood run cold. All the scary stories we had shared seemed to have come to life before us. I glanced fearfully at my friends, who were also frozen with fear. After a few moments of tense silence, one of them, Jack, decided to get up and investigate the source of the noises. Despite my pleas for him to stay, he moved towards the shadows, carrying only a flickering flashlight. Minutes later, I heard his scream echo through the woods. My heart pounded as Jack returned, his face distraught and pale as wax. I saw a man, with an axe, he stammered, trembling. At that moment, the reality of the legend seemed to have caught up with us. A chill ran down my spine as I wondered what could be lurking in that darkness. I clung to my friends, seeking some sense of security, but the feeling of imminent danger wouldn't leave us. As the night went on, the sounds from the forest grew closer and more frequent. Branches snapping, leaves rustling, and every now and then, the distant echo of an axe chopping. My friends and I clung to each other, nervously scanning the surroundings as the campfire dwindled. When we finally gathered the courage to inspect the campsite, we were horrified to find things mysteriously missing: a missing canteen, a pair of boots that were no longer where we left them. Then, as we ventured into the forest with our flashlights, we found deep axe marks on the trees, as if someone had been there, watching us. The sense of danger intensified with every passing minute. We could no longer relax, jumping at every noise. We knew that something or someone was watching us, perhaps the shadowy figure of the legendary woodsman. Our uneasy eyes scanned the darkness, and our hearts raced with fear of the unknown stalking us. We couldn't bear the tension and fear any longer. We mustered all the courage we had left and decided to confront once and for all the figure that haunted us. We grabbed our flashlights and ventured into the dark forest, determined to uncover the truth behind the legend. Our hearts pounded as we walked cautiously, alert to any movement or suspicious sound. Then, we spotted a distant silhouette, outlined against the shadows of the trees. It was a tall, burly man holding a huge axe. My friends and I froze, staring at that threatening figure. Gathering what remained of our courage, we approached him. As we got closer, the man turned and stared at us with wild, piercing eyes. "What are you doing in my forest?" he growled, his deep, raspy voice echoing through the trees. We explained that we were just camping and had heard stories about him, but the old woodsman didn't seem convinced. "This is my land," he shouted, brandishing the axe menacingly. Our bodies trembled with fear as we tried to stay calm and convince him that we meant no harm. After a few moments of tension, the man finally relaxed his shoulders and looked at us with a calmer expression. "Get out of here," he ordered, then turned and disappeared into the shadows of the forest. Relieved but still scared, we hurried back to camp, praying that the encounter wouldn't repeat itself. After the tense confrontation with the old woodsman, we finally managed to convince him that we had no intention of invading his territory. With much diplomacy and understanding, he allowed us to continue our camp without further incidents. Though still shaken by the experience, we were able to enjoy the rest of the night with more peace of mind. We shared a sigh of relief, realizing that the legend, as frightening as it was, seemed to be just a local rumor and that the woodsman, though gruff, didn't appear to pose any real danger. When we returned home, however, one of my friends, Sarah, told me something that left her uneasy. She said that when she checked her backyard, she had noticed axe marks on some trees, similar to the ones we found in the forest. Moreover, she had been hearing strange noises at night, as if someone was lurking around her property. Hearing her, a feeling of unease washed over me. Could the legend of the woodsman have some truth to it after all? Could that shadowy figure have really left the forest and followed one of us home? The thought intrigued me and left me slightly apprehensive. Maybe the terrifying encounters with the legendary woodsman weren't really over.
That camping trip around Black Lake was supposed to be an exciting and fun adventure. My friends and I were thrilled about the idea of swimming in those mysterious waters, despite the scary stories circulating about the place. During the day, everything went wonderfully. We dove into the dark depths of the lake, laughed, and played, completely absorbed in our fun. The bucolic beauty of the environment quickly made us forget the eerie rumors surrounding the area. But as the sun set and night fell, something in the air started to change. The atmosphere became heavier, the shadows lengthened, and an unusual silence fell upon us. We couldn't relax like before, and our eyes kept darting nervously around the edges of the lake, looking for any suspicious movement. Around the campfire, we shared increasingly scary stories about apparitions, strange creatures, and disappearances in the depths of that eerie body of water. As the night wore on, the rumors seemed to come to life, with tension building inside us like a storm about to break. Unable to take my eyes off the lake, I wondered what might be lurking there, in those waters as dark as the night itself. A chill ran down my spine just thinking about what might inhabit those unknown depths. That night, we decided to swim a bit before going to bed. The dark, calm waters of the lake seemed inviting under the moonlight, and we didn't want to miss the chance to enjoy a bit more of our adventure. As I entered the lake, a strange feeling started to bother me. Maybe it was the eerie silence or the impenetrable depth of those waters, but I couldn't fully relax. My friends, however, seemed to be having fun without a care in the world. Suddenly, I heard a muffled scream from where Alex was swimming. He jumped out of the water, his face stricken with terror. "Something pulled my foot," he exclaimed, breathless. His wide eyes darted nervously around the lake, searching for any sign of imminent danger. Despite his clear distress, the others just laughed, thinking he was imagining things. "It must have been just a fish or something," they said, trying to calm him down. But I could tell Alex was genuinely scared, his expression showing real fear. While my friends went back to swimming carefree, I stayed at the edge of the lake, staring at its still surface. A growing sense of unease gripped me, and I couldn't stop imagining what might be lurking in those dark waters. As the night went on, the atmosphere around Black Lake grew increasingly heavy and oppressive. After the incident with Alex, none of us could completely relax. Our uneasy gazes kept turning to the darkness of the water, as if something might emerge at any moment. And then, the whispers began. They were unintelligible murmurs that seemed to come directly from the lake. A hissing voice, echoing across the calm surface of the water. My heart raced when I realized I wasn't imagining things, the others had heard those unsettling sounds too. Gradually, we started to see shadows moving in the depths, as if unknown creatures were swimming beneath us. A cold shiver ran down my spine, and a visceral fear took hold of me. What could be living in that dark, ominous lake? As the night progressed, the feeling of being watched grew stronger. Some of my friends swore they heard footsteps echoing around our tents, as if something was prowling around the campsite. Panic began to grip us, and the confidence we had at the beginning of the trip seemed to vanish completely. No one could sleep peacefully anymore. Every noise, every shadow, echoed in our ears and hearts like a warning of imminent danger. Black Lake, once a bucolic scene, now seemed to harbor hidden threats, waiting for the right moment to reveal their true, terrifying nature. That feeling of fear and discomfort became increasingly unbearable. We couldn't just stay there, waiting for something terrible to happen. We gathered all the courage we had left and decided to investigate the dark waters of Black Lake. Equipped with flashlights and diving gear, we carefully entered that underwater world, inspecting every corner. As we delved deeper, a strange unease grew within me. It was as if we could feel the presence of something ancient and powerful lurking around us. And then, we saw the entrance to a cave, partially hidden by the waters. We decided to explore that mystery, diving into its darkness. Inside, we came across a disturbing scene, walls covered in symbols and inscriptions, remnants of ancient rituals practiced by the indigenous peoples who inhabited the region. I ran my trembling hand over those enigmatic drawings, trying to decipher their meaning. I sensed that this cave hid ancestral secrets, perhaps even the key to understanding the hidden forces that haunted Black Lake. My friends, as frightened as I was, observed everything in silence, shaken by the magnitude of that place. Despite the tension that consumed us, none of us were harmed. We emerged from the cave unscathed, carrying the image of those enigmatic symbols in our minds. That discovery, instead of calming us, only increased our curiosity and apprehension about what really inhabited those dark waters. After the unsettling discovery inside the submerged cave, my friends and I came to a conclusion: we couldn't stay at that campsite any longer. The atmosphere of tension and the feeling of being watched had become simply unbearable. We quickly gathered all our things, eager to leave that place as soon as possible. As we moved away from Black Lake, a strange calm began to settle over us. It was as if that oppressive feeling of imminent danger had been left behind with the dark waters of that mysterious body of water. I felt tremendous relief as we distanced ourselves from that place, but also a lingering unease. What did those symbols and inscriptions we found in the cave mean? What ancient forces were lurking around that lake? A part of me felt tempted to return and explore more, uncovering its secrets, but prudence prevailed. As we moved away, I noticed the feeling of being watched had completely disappeared. I looked back, only to see Black Lake becoming more and more distant, its waters now seeming calm and peaceful under the moonlight. It was as if we had escaped a nightmare, leaving behind something we didn't fully understand.